In the cold depths of space, where ancient civilizations have risen and fallen for millions of years, there exists a test that no species has ever passed. It is not a test of technology, weapons, or military might. It is not about intelligence or scientific advancement. It is a test of character. The Galactic Council, composed of 12 elder races who have witnessed the birth and death of countless worlds, has observed humanity for decades. They have seen humans build magnificent cities and tear them down in wars. They have watched humans reach for the stars while destroying their own planet. They have witnessed acts of breathtaking cruelty and stunning compassion, sometimes within the same individual. But humanity remains unaware that they are being tested. The test comes in a single moment. A moment where choice reveals the true nature of a species. Where instinct overrides calculation. Where the mask falls away and the soul stands naked. Commander Marcus Chen thought he was just saving a lost child on a remote mining station. He had no idea that his next decision would determine whether humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community or marked for extinction. The aliens weren't just watching. They were judging. And the fate of 7 billion humans hung on what one man would do when he thought no one was looking. Commander Marcus Chen's boots echoed against the metal corridors of mining station Kepler 442b as he made his routine inspection rounds. The station, a massive industrial complex carved into the side of an asteroid, hummed with the constant sound of drilling equipment and atmospheric processors. Red warning lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, creating a maze of light and darkness that would disorient most visitors. But Marcus had been stationed here for 3 years. He knew every corridor, every junction, every hiding spot where miners liked to take unauthorized breaks. The station housed nearly 2,000 workers from various human colonies, all drawn by the promise of high wages and hazardous duty pay. Kepler 442b was rich in rare Earth elements that Earth's expanding space fleet desperately needed, but it was also one of the most dangerous postings in human space. The asteroid's unstable core meant constant seismic activity, and the thin atmosphere required everyone to carry emergency oxygen at all times. Marcus paused at Viewport 7, gazing out at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its slow expansion into the galaxy. Humanity had encountered other species in their travels, though contact had been limited to brief, formal exchanges. The aliens seemed content to ignore the newcomer species, treating humans like particularly loud neighbors who had just moved into the galactic neighborhood. A soft chiming from his wrist communicator interrupted his thoughts. Commander Chen to Section 12, came the voice of his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Voss. We've got a situation with one of the deep drilling teams. Marcus sighed and changed direction, heading toward the industrial sector. Section 12 was one of the deepest parts of the station, where massive drilling rigs worked around the clock to extract precious metals from the asteroid's core. The work was dangerous, the conditions harsh, and the workers were some of the toughest humans Marcus had ever met. When he arrived at Section 12, he found Lieutenant Voss standing outside the supervisor's office, her expression grim. Through the reinforced window, Marcus could see Jake Morrison, the section chief, gesturing angrily at a holographic display showing production numbers. "What's the problem?" Marcus asked. "Morrison's pushing his teams beyond safe limits again," Voss replied quietly. "They're working 18-hour shifts, and some of the equipment is showing stress fractures. The union rep filed a complaint an hour ago." Marcus nodded. This was a recurring issue. Morrison was a good supervisor and genuinely cared about his workers, but the pressure from corporate headquarters to meet quotas was intense. The rare earth elements mined here were crucial for humanity's expansion efforts, and any delays could set back colonization efforts by months. "I'll talk to him," Marcus said, approaching the office door. The conversation with Morrison went about as expected. The section chief was frustrated, caught between impossible quotas and the safety of his workers. He respected Marcus but felt cornered by circumstances beyond his control. After 30 minutes of discussion, they reached a compromise: extended rest periods between shifts and mandatory safety inspections of all equipment before each work cycle. As Marcus left the office, he noticed something odd. A small figure was crouched behind one of the massive support pillars in the corridor, partially hidden in the shadows. At first glance, it looked like a child, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, with pale skin and unusually large eyes. The figure was wearing what appeared to be a standard station jumpsuit, but it was several sizes too large. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to startle what he assumed was a worker's child who had wandered away from the residential sector. As he got closer, he could see that the child appeared to be injured. There were what looked like burns on the small arms, and the child was shivering despite the station's controlled temperature. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, crouching down to the child's level. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The child looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and Marcus felt a strange sensation wash over him. For a moment, it seemed as though the child was looking directly into his soul, seeing things that Marcus himself didn't know existed. The eyes were an unusual color, almost silver, and they seemed far too old for such a young face. "I'm lost," the child said in a voice barely above a whisper. "I can't find my way home." Marcus felt his heart clench. He had seen plenty of industrial accidents during his time on the station, but seeing a child injured was particularly difficult. "What's your name, sweetheart? Where are your parents?" "I don't remember," the child replied, tears beginning to form in those strange silver eyes. "Everything hurts, and I'm scared." Without hesitation, Marcus scooped the child up in his arms, being careful not to aggravate what appeared to be burns on the small body. The child was surprisingly light, almost weightless, and there was something odd about the texture of the skin that Marcus couldn't quite identify. "Don't worry," Marcus said, his voice filled with the kind of gentle authority that had made him a natural leader. "We're going to get you fixed up and find your family. You're safe now." As he carried the child toward the medical bay, Marcus's mind was already racing through the possibilities. How had a child gotten into the industrial sector? The residential areas were on the opposite side of the station, and there were multiple security checkpoints between them and the mining operations. More importantly, how had a child been injured so badly without anyone noticing? The medical bay was located in the central hub of the station, a 20-minute walk from Section 12. As Marcus carried the child through the corridors, he noticed other workers stopping to stare. Some looked concerned, others confused. A few of the more experienced miners had expressions that Marcus couldn't quite read, almost as if they recognized something he didn't. "Commander," called out Elena Vasquez, one of the senior engineers. "Where did you find the kid?" "Section 12, Marcus replied without stopping. "Looks like burn injuries. Have you seen any families reporting a missing child?" Elena shook her head, but her expression remained troubled. "No, sir, but there's something you should know about Section 12. We've been getting some strange readings from the deep sensors. Anomalous energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases." Marcus filed that information away for later. Right now, his priority was getting medical attention for the injured child. As they entered the medical bay, Dr. Kim Patel looked up from his workstation, his expression immediately shifting to professional concern when he saw what Marcus was carrying. "What happened?" Dr. Patel asked, quickly clearing an examination table. "Found this child in Section 12, appears to have burn injuries," Marcus explained, gently placing the child on the padded surface. "Claims to be lost and can't remember much." Dr. Patel began his examination, and Marcus noticed the physician's expression growing increasingly puzzled. The doctor ran several diagnostic scans, checked and rechecked his instruments, and, finally, stepped back with a frown. "Commander, I need to speak with you privately," Dr. Patel said quietly. They moved to the doctor's office, leaving the child under the care of a medical technician. Dr. Patel closed the door and activated the privacy screen before speaking. "Marcus, I've been a physician for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this," Dr. Patel said, his voice tight with concern. "The burn patterns are unlike anything caused by our equipment. They're too precise, almost geometric in nature. And there's something else." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What is it?" "The child's biological readings are unusual. Heart rate, brain activity, even cellular structure. It's all within human parameters, but just barely. It's as if someone took a human template and modified it slightly." Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as an automated voice announced, "Attention all personnel. Unidentified vessels approaching station. All workers report to designated safe areas immediately." This is not a drill. Marcus's blood ran cold. In 3 years of service at the station, they had never had an unidentified approach. The deep space sensors had a range of several light minutes, which meant whatever was coming had appeared suddenly, and was moving fast. He rushed back to the examination room, but the table was empty. The child was gone, and the medical technician was standing motionless, staring at the wall with a blank expression. "Where's the child?" Marcus demanded. The technician blinked slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. "Child? I don't remember any child, Commander." Marcus felt a growing sense of unease as he activated his communicator. "All department heads to the command center immediately. We have a situation." The command center was a hive of activity when Marcus arrived. Lieutenant Voss was coordinating with the sensor operators while Chief Morrison monitored the mining operations. On the main display screen, 3 sleek vessels approached the station. They were unlike any human ship Marcus had ever seen, with smooth, organic curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "Sir, they're not responding to any of our standard communication protocols," reported Communications Officer Chen. "But they're not showing any hostile intent either. They're just sitting there." Marcus studied the ships on the screen. They were beautiful in a way that human engineering had never quite achieved, as if they had been grown rather than built. There was something almost alive about their movement through space. "Have we tried all the alien contact protocols?" Marcus asked. "Yes, sir, we've broadcast in every known alien language and mathematical sequence." Nothing. Suddenly, the central view screen flickered, and a new image appeared. It showed a vast chamber filled with beings that Marcus couldn't quite comprehend. They seemed to shift and change as he watched, sometimes appearing almost human, other times taking on forms that hurt to look at directly. A voice spoke, and somehow Marcus understood it, even though he was certain it wasn't using any human language. "Commander Marcus Chen," the voice said, resonating inside his head as much as through the speakers. "You have been observed. Your species has been judged. The test is complete." Marcus stepped forward, his training overriding his confusion and fear. "I am Commander Chen. What test? What do you want with my station?" "The child you saved was not human," the voice continued. "It was a projection, a test of your character. We needed to see how your species responds when you believe no one is watching. When there is no reward for kindness, no punishment for cruelty." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. The strange child, the unusual injuries, the biological anomalies that Dr. Patel had detected. It had all been a test. "You see, Commander, your species stands at a crossroads. You have the technology to spread throughout the galaxy, but do you have the wisdom? Do you have the compassion necessary to join the galactic community?" Around the command center, Marcus's crew listened in stunned silence. The implications of what they were hearing were staggering. Humanity wasn't alone, and, apparently, they had been under observation. "We have watched your species for decades," the voice continued. "We have seen your wars, your cruelty, your capacity for destruction. But we have also seen acts of unexpected kindness, moments where individual humans chose compassion over personal gain." Marcus thought about the moment when he had found the child. He hadn't hesitated to help, hadn't considered any possible consequences or rewards. He had simply seen someone in need and acted. "Your response to our test has been illuminating," the voice said. "But this is only the beginning. Greater challenges await your species, and not all of our kind agree with giving humanity a chance." The image on the screen shifted, showing what appeared to be a vast galactic map with thousands of points of light representing different species and civilizations. Marcus could see that humanity's small cluster of colonies was barely visible in comparison to the ancient empires that surrounded them. "We are the Watchers," the voice explained. "We observe emerging species and determine their worthiness to join the galactic community. Your test was not just about individual compassion, but about how your leaders respond under pressure, how you treat those who appear powerless. Marcus realized that his actions in the next few minutes might determine the fate of his entire species. The weight of that responsibility was almost overwhelming, but he had to ask the question that was burning in his mind. What happens now? Did we pass your test? There was a long pause before the voice responded. That remains to be seen, Commander Chen. Your individual response was promising, but humanity as a species will face greater trials. Some of our kind believe your species is too young, too violent to be trusted with galactic citizenship. The ships on the screen began to change position, moving into what appeared to be a defensive formation around the station. Marcus realized they were being protected, not threatened. We are going to give your species an opportunity, the voice continued. But, know this, Commander, the galaxy is not empty, and not all who inhabit it are as patient as we are. There are those who see humanity's rapid expansion as a threat that must be contained. As the Watcher's ships maintained their vigil around the station, Marcus understood that his simple act of kindness toward what he thought was a lost child had opened a door to something much larger than he could have imagined. The real test was just beginning. 3 days after the first contact with the Watchers, Commander Marcus Chun found himself in the most important meeting of human history. The Watchers had provided a detailed briefing about the galactic political situation, and what Marcus learned made him question everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. The conference room aboard the lead Watcher vessel was unlike anything from human technology. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft, bioluminescent light. The furniture appeared to grow from the floor as needed, perfectly accommodating each individual's physiology. Marcus sat across from 3 Watcher representatives, each one slightly different in appearance, as if they were variations on a theme rather than distinct individuals. The lead Watcher, who had introduced himself as Keeper Zy, had a form that seemed stable but somehow fluid at the edges. His voice resonated directly in Marcus's mind, making translation unnecessary. Commander Chen, Zy began, what we are about to share with you will fundamentally change humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. Are you prepared for this knowledge? Marcus nodded, though he felt anything but prepared. My species needs to know the truth, regardless of how difficult it might be to accept. The chamber around them shifted, and, suddenly, Marcus found himself standing in what appeared to be a vast three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Points of light represented different star systems, with various colors indicating different levels of civilization development. This is the Milky Way as it truly exists, explained the second Watcher, who called herself Keeper Velana. What you see here are over 40,000 distinct spacefaring civilizations, ranging from those who have just achieved interplanetary travel to empires that span multiple galactic arms. Marcus stared in wonder at the sheer scope of galactic civilization. Humanity's small cluster of colonies was barely a pinprick in comparison. 40,000? But we've only encountered a handful of species in our expansion. That is by design, Zy replied. Young species are typically quarantined until they reach certain developmental milestones. The galaxy is vast, but resources are not infinite. Uncontrolled expansion by aggressive species has led to conflicts that consumed entire star systems. The map shifted focus to show a region of space that appeared empty, devoid of the lights that marked civilized systems. This was the Andromeda sector, home to 12 different species approximately 50,000 years ago. They destroyed each other in a conflict over resource allocation that lasted 3 millennia. Now it serves as a reminder of what unchecked aggression can accomplish. Marcus felt a chill run through him. Are you saying that humanity is considered aggressive? The third Watcher, Keeper Mordun, leaned forward. His form was more angular than the others, with what appeared to be metallic components integrated into his biology. Commander, in the past century, humanity has engaged in over 40 separate military conflicts. Your species has weapons capable of rendering entire worlds uninhabitable. You consume resources at an exponential rate and show little regard for long-term environmental consequences. But, Velana interjected, you also show remarkable capacity for growth, adaptation, and individual acts of extraordinary compassion. The test with the child was designed to measure something that no technology can quantify: the fundamental nature of your moral compass when you believe no one is observing. The galactic map zoomed in on the local region around human space. Marcus could see several clusters of systems in different colors surrounding humanity's territory. Your immediate neighbors present interesting challenges, Zyyentar explained. The hegemony of Scarthol views your expansion as a direct threat to their mining operations. They are a warrior culture that respects only strength and has little patience for diplomatic solutions. A section of the map highlighted in red, showing a confederation of systems that dwarfed human space. Marcus could see dozens of heavily fortified worlds and what appeared to be massive fleet concentrations. The Scarthol have been monitoring your military capabilities, Mordun continued. They are preparing for what they see as an inevitable conflict. Their philosophy is simple: eliminate threats before they become dangerous. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How long before they act? That depends entirely on how humanity responds to the knowledge we are sharing today, Velana replied. If your species continues its current expansion patterns without consideration for galactic law and protocol, the Scarthol will likely move within 5 of your years. The map shifted again, showing another neighboring region in blue. The Crystalline Collective, on the other hand, is fascinated by human innovation and adaptability. They are a hive mind species that values efficiency and logical progression. They see potential in humanity but question whether your individualistic nature can coexist with collective decision-making. Marcus studied the information being presented. The political complexity of the galaxy was staggering, and humanity was clearly unprepared for the reality of their situation. What about the Watchers? Marcus asked. Where do you stand in all of this? The three keepers exchanged what Marcus interpreted as meaningful looks, though their expressions were difficult to read. We are observers and, when necessary, guides, Zyyentar explained. Our species achieved technological transcendence approximately 2 million years ago. We exist primarily to prevent the kind of galactic catastrophes that occurred in the early epochs of civilization. Think of us as teachers, Velana added. We identify species with potential and attempt to guide them toward galactic citizenship. However, we cannot and will not fight their battles for them. Each species must prove its worth through its own choices and actions. The chamber around them returned to its original configuration, and Marcus found himself once again sitting across from the three Watchers. This brings us to why you are here, Commander, Mordun said. Your response to our test was encouraging, but individual actions, while important, are not sufficient. We need to see how humanity as a whole responds to challenges that test your species' fundamental character. Marcus leaned forward. What kind of challenges? The first will come within days, Zyyentar replied. The Scarthol are planning to test human resolve by attacking one of your outer colonies. They will use overwhelming force to see how your military responds under pressure. Will you fight with honor, or will you resort to the kind of total warfare that has characterized many of your historical conflicts? The weight of this information was crushing. Marcus realized that he was being given advance warning of an attack on human civilians, but he also understood that how humanity responded would determine their future relationship with the galaxy. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Isn't this interference? Knowledge is not interference, Velana replied. We are simply providing context. How humanity chooses to use this information is entirely up to your species. Mordun activated a device that projected a detailed tactical analysis of the planned Scarthol attack. They will strike the mining colony at Epsilon Eridani with approximately 50 warships. The colony has minimal defenses and a population of 30,000 civilians. The nearest human fleet elements are at least 4 days away at maximum burn. Marcus studied the tactical situation. It was clearly designed to be unwinnable through conventional means. The Scarthol weren't just testing human military capability, they were testing human character under impossible circumstances. What would the galactic community expect from us in this situation? Marcus asked. That is precisely the wrong question, Commander, Zwayentar replied, and, for the first time, Marcus detected what might have been disappointment in the Watcher's mental voice. The galactic community expects nothing. We want to see what humanity chooses to do when faced with an impossible situation. Do you sacrifice the few to save the many? Do you rush to a hopeless battle and throw away lives? Do you find a third option that no one else has considered? The three Watchers stood simultaneously, and Marcus realized the meeting was coming to an end. You will return to your station now, Velana said. You may share this information with your superiors, but understand that the test has already begun. Every decision your species makes from this point forward will be observed and evaluated. As Marcus was transported back to the mining station, his mind raced with the implications of what he had learned. Humanity was not just expanding into empty space, they were entering a complex galactic ecosystem with rules and consequences that could mean survival or extinction. When he materialized in the station's command center, Lieutenant Voss was waiting for him with an urgent expression. Commander, we've received priority communications from Earth Command. There's been an attack on the Epsilon Eridani colony. Initial reports suggest unknown alien vessels, overwhelming firepower. They're requesting immediate military response from all available units. Marcus felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. The test had begun, just as the Watchers had warned. The question was whether humanity would pass or fail. What's our fleet status? Marcus asked. We have 3 destroyers and a heavy cruiser in this sector, Voss replied. But Epsilon Eridani is 4 days away, and intelligence suggests the attacking force significantly outguns anything we can deploy. Marcus activated the secure communication link to Earth Command, knowing that the next few hours would likely determine the fate of his species. As he waited for the connection to establish, he thought about the strange child he had tried to save, the test he hadn't known he was taking, and the vast, complex galaxy that humanity was about to enter, willing or not. The Scarthal had made their move. Now it was humanity's turn to show the galaxy what they were truly made of. Marcus only hoped that his species would prove worthy of the chance they were being given. The communication link crackled to life, and Admiral Sarah Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was grim, and Marcus could see the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Commander Chen, we need every available ship at Epsilon Eridani immediately. The colony is under siege, and we're looking at total civilian casualties unless we can mount an effective response. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would carry consequences far beyond this single battle. Admiral, I have information that might change our approach to this situation. Information that could affect not just this battle, but humanity's entire future. The test that had begun with a simple act of kindness toward a lost child was about to determine whether humanity would find its place among the stars or be eliminated as a threat to galactic peace. Admiral Sarah Morrison's weathered face filled the communication screen as Marcus Chen prepared to share information that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. The Admiral was known throughout the human fleet for her tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication to protecting civilian lives. What Marcus was about to tell her would test both qualities to their limits. Admiral, Marcus began carefully, I need you to understand that what I'm about to share with you comes from a source that is both completely reliable and completely unprecedented. 3 days ago, this station made first contact with an alien species that has been observing humanity for decades. Morrison's expression shifted from surprise to skepticism to professional focus within seconds. Commander, if this is some kind of breakdown due to stress, now is not the time. We have 30,000 civilians under attack. Ma'am, I understand how this sounds, but I need you to hear me out. The attack on Epsilon Eridani is not random. It's a test. The species attacking the colony, called the Scarthal, are doing so specifically to observe how humanity responds under pressure. Marcus quickly outlined his encounters with the Watchers, the galactic political situation, and the advance warning he had received about the Scarthal attack. As he spoke, Morrison's expression grew increasingly grave. You're telling me that this attack was essentially announced in advance, and we're being judged on our response? Morrison asked when Marcus finished. Yes, ma'am. But here's the crucial part. this isn't just about our military response. The Watchers specifically mentioned that they want to see what humanity does when faced with an impossible situation. Do we sacrifice the few to save the many? Do we charge into a hopeless battle? Or do we find a third option? Morrison was quiet for several long moments, processing the implications. Commander, assuming what you're telling me is accurate, what does your alien contact suggest we do? They won't tell us, Admiral. That's the point. They want to see what we choose when we think no one is helping us. But I think the real test isn't about the tactics we use in this battle. It's about what those tactics reveal about our fundamental character as a species. On the tactical display behind Morrison, Marcus could see fleet positions updating in real time. Human ships throughout the sector were converging on Epsilon Eridani, but the mathematics were brutal. Even with every available vessel, they would be outnumbered at least 10 to 1. Commander, I'm going to make a decision that could end my career, Morrison said after a long pause. I'm going to trust that what you're telling me is accurate and base our response accordingly. But understand this, if you're wrong, I'll be responsible for the deaths of 30,000 civilians. Marcus felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his own shoulders. Admiral, there's something else you need to know. The Watchers indicated that individual acts of compassion and moral courage are what they're really evaluating. Your decision to trust me, despite the risk to your career and the lives at stake, might be exactly the kind of leadership they're looking for. Morrison activated her fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. I know that our intelligence suggests we're facing an impossible tactical situation at Epsilon Eridani. I'm going to share some information with you that will change how we approach this battle. Over the next 30 minutes, Morrison briefed her fleet commanders on the galactic situation and the true nature of the Scarthal attack. The reactions ranged from disbelief to anger to grim determination. Captain Janet Rodriguez of the destroyer Excalibur was the first to voice what many were thinking. Admiral, even if we accept this information at face value, we still have 30,000 civilians who need immediate protection. The Scarthal may be testing us, but the weapons they're using are real, and people are dying. Agreed, Captain, Morrison replied. Which is why we're going to respond, but not in the way they expect. Commander Chen, your Watcher contacts mentioned that they respect species who find third options. What do you think they mean by that? Marcus had been thinking about that question since his conversation with the Watchers. Admiral, I think the key is understanding what the Scarthal are actually trying to accomplish. They're not trying to conquer the colony or kill civilians for strategic gain. They're trying to provoke a specific type of response from us. Which is? They want us to respond with overwhelming force, to show that humanity will escalate conflicts when threatened. If we charge in with guns blazing, we confirm their belief that we're a dangerous, aggressive species that needs to be contained. Morrison nodded slowly. So the third option is to respond in a way that protects the civilians while demonstrating something other than pure aggression. The tactical challenge was staggering. The Scarthal had positioned their fleet in a blockade around Epsilon Eridani, effectively trapping the civilian population on the colony while systematically destroying infrastructure. Their attacks were carefully calibrated to create maximum psychological pressure without actually killing large numbers of people, at least not yet. Admiral, said Captain Thomas Park of the heavy cruiser Indomitable, I've been analyzing the Scarthal attack patterns. They're not targeting civilian areas directly. They're destroying power plants, communication arrays, and defensive installations, but they're avoiding residential districts. That supports the theory that this is a test rather than a genuine attempt at genocide, Morrison replied. Captain Rodriguez, what's the status on evacuation ships in the region? We have 12 transport vessels within 2 days' travel time, ma'am. But that's not nearly enough capacity for a full evacuation, and the Scarthal blockade would prevent them from reaching the surface anyway. Marcus studied the tactical displays and, suddenly, had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. Admiral, what if we're approaching this backwards? What if instead of trying to fight our way to the colony, we invite the Scarthal to fight us somewhere else? Morrison raised an eyebrow. Explain. The Scarthal want to test human courage and tactical ability under pressure. What they're not expecting is for us to change the parameters of the test entirely.
What if we offer them single combat? The communication channel fell silent as the implications sank in.
Captain Park was the first to speak.
Commander, are you suggesting we challenge an alien fleet to a duel?
Not a fleet, Marcus replied.
A single ship.
According to the Watchers, the Scarthol respect strength and honor above all else.
In warrior cultures, single combat is often used to resolve disputes without massive bloodshed.
If we can demonstrate courage, skill, and honor in a way that impresses them, they might respect us enough to withdraw. Morrison was quiet for several minutes, clearly weighing the options.
It's an enormous risk, she finally said.
If they refuse the challenge, or if they accept and destroy our champion, we'd still have to fight the full battle with one less ship. But, if it works, Marcus continued, we save civilian lives and potentially earn the respect of a warrior culture that could become either a valuable ally or a dangerous enemy.
Captain Rodriguez spoke up. Admiral, there's precedent for this in human history. Throughout various cultures, single combat has been used to resolve conflicts that would otherwise require massive battles.
The concept might translate across species. Morrison made her decision with the kind of quick, decisive action that had made her one of humanity's most respected military leaders. Commander Chen, you brought us this information, and the idea for this approach came from your conversation with the Watchers.
I'm appointing you as our champion.
You'll take the heavy cruiser Resilience and issue the challenge to the Scarthol commander.
Marcus felt his stomach drop.
He had expected Morrison to choose one of the more experienced fleet commanders, not a mining station administrator with minimal combat experience. Admiral, with all due respect, Captain Park or Captain Rodriguez would be much better choices for this mission.
Negative, Commander.
The Watchers specifically mentioned that they were evaluating individual character and moral courage. You demonstrated those qualities when you helped what you thought was an injured child. If this is really about showing the galaxy what humanity is made of, then you represent our species better than any of us.
The weight of representing all of humanity in single combat against an alien warrior was almost overwhelming.
Marcus thought about the strange child in the mining station corridor, the decision to help without considering consequences, and realized that this was the same choice on a vastly larger scale.
Understood, Admiral. I accept the responsibility.
Over the next 18 hours, Marcus transferred to the heavy cruiser Resilience and prepared for what might be humanity's most important battle. The ship was one of the newest in the human fleet, equipped with the latest weapons and defensive systems, but Marcus knew that technology alone wouldn't be enough. As the Resilience approached the Epsilon Eridani system, Marcus could see the Scarthol fleet spread out in a precise blockade formation. Their ships were beautiful in a deadly way, with sleek hulls that seemed to flow like liquid metal and weapon arrays that pulsed with contained energy. Communications, open a channel to the Scarthol command vessel, Marcus ordered. The main view screen flickered, and suddenly, Marcus found himself face to face with his opposite number. The Scarthol commander was tall and imposing, with scaled skin that seemed to shift color in the light and eyes that burned with an intensity that was both intimidating and intelligent. I am Fleet Commander Karthek of the Scarthol Hegemony, the alien said, its voice carrying an undertone of barely contained aggression.
You are the human who dares to enter our engagement zone.
Marcus stood and faced the screen with as much dignity as he could muster.
I am Commander Marcus Chun of the human colonial fleet. I come to offer honorable single combat to resolve this conflict. Karthek's expression shifted, showing what Marcus interpreted as surprise and, possibly, respect. You offer single combat? Your species seeks to resolve this dispute through trial by battle rather than fleet engagement? That is correct.
One ship against one ship, winner takes all. If I am victorious, your fleet withdraws and leaves our civilians unharmed. If you are victorious, we will withdraw our forces and accept whatever terms you deem appropriate.
The Scarthol commander was quiet for several long moments, clearly considering the proposition. This is unexpected.
Your species has a reputation for preferring technological solutions and overwhelming force.
You would stake the lives of 30,000 civilians on single combat? I would stake them on the honor and courage of humanity, Marcus replied. Our people are worth defending, but not at the cost of perpetual warfare. If single combat can resolve this conflict with honor on both sides, then that is the path I choose. Karthek made a sound that Marcus couldn't interpret but hoped was approval. Very well, human. I accept your challenge. We will meet in the space between our fleets, and may the stronger warrior prevail. As the communication ended and both ships began maneuvering for the confrontation, Marcus realized that he was no longer just trying to save a mining colony. He was fighting for humanity's right to exist among the stars, and the entire galaxy was watching. The space between the two fleets crackled with tension as the Resilience and the Scarthal vessel Bloodhawk maneuvered into position for their single combat. Marcuschan stood on the bridge of his ship, watching as dozens of alien and human vessels formed a vast circle around the designated combat zone. This wasn't just a battle between two commanders, it was a spectacle being observed by representatives of multiple galactic civilizations. Through the Watchers, word of the unprecedented challenge had spread rapidly across local space. Marcus could see on his tactical display that several other alien vessels had arrived to witness the confrontation. Each represented a different species, each with their own agenda for how humanity's test should conclude. Commander, reported Lieutenant Sarah Voss, who had transferred to the Resilience as his tactical officer, were receiving observational signals from at least 6 different alien civilizations. It appears this single combat has drawn more attention than we anticipated. Marcus nodded grimly. The pressure of representing humanity was enormous, but knowing that other species were also watching somehow made it even more intense. This battle would likely be studied and analyzed for generations, regardless of the outcome. Ship status report, Marcus requested. All systems nominal, replied Chief Engineer Thompson. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, engines running clean. The ship's ready for whatever comes next, sir. The Bloodhawk was a magnificent vessel, larger than the Resilience and bristling with weapons that seemed to grow organically from its hull. As Marcus watched, the ship completed a series of complex maneuvers that demonstrated both the pilot's skill and the vessel's remarkable agility for something so large. Incoming communication from the Scarthal vessel, announced Communications Officer Park. Commander Karthek appeared on the screen again, but this time he was wearing what appeared to be ceremonial armor that gleamed with an inner light. His expression had changed from mere aggression to something that Marcus recognized as professional respect. Human Commander, Karthek began, before we begin this trial by combat, I must tell you that your choice to offer single combat has already impressed many among my people. It shows courage that we did not expect from your species. Marcus felt a slight relief. At least the gesture itself had been worthwhile, regardless of the outcome. Thank you, Commander. I hope our actions today will lead to understanding between our peoples, whatever the result. As do I, Karthek replied. Know this, I will fight with full honor, holding nothing back. You deserve no less than my best effort. The communication ended, and both ships began their final approach to the combat zone. Marcus had spent the transit time studying everything available about Scarthal tactics and technology, but he knew that theory and reality were often very different things. Combat range in 30 seconds, reported Tactical Officer Kim. Enemy vessel is maintaining standard approach vector. Marcus took his position in the command chair, feeling the weight of billions of human lives depending on his decisions in the next few minutes. All stations report ready for combat. The first exchange came as both ships entered optimal firing range. The Bloodhawk opened with a barrage of plasma bolts that lit up the Resilience's forward shields like a solar flare. The ship shuddered under the impact, but the shields held. Return fire, all forward batteries, Marcus ordered. The Resilience's response was immediate and devastating. Human pulse cannons and particle beam weapons struck the Scarthal vessel's shields in a precisely coordinated pattern designed to overwhelm specific sections. For a moment, it seemed like the human weapons were having little effect, but then, one section of the alien shields flickered and failed. Direct hit on their forward array, reported Lieutenant Kim. Significant damage to their primary weapon system. But Karthek was far from finished.
The Bloodhawk rolled and came about in a maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size, bringing its secondary weapons to bear while simultaneously launching what appeared to be some kind of boarding craft.
Incoming projectiles, Voss announced.
They appear to be some kind of guided munitions, but they're not following standard ballistic trajectories.
Marcus watched in fascination and growing concern as the Scarthal weapons seemed to dance through space, avoiding the Resilience's defensive fire with an almost organic fluidity. When they struck the ship's shields, they didn't explode in the conventional sense. Instead, they seemed to burrow into the energy barrier, gradually weakening it from within. Those aren't just weapons, Marcus realized. They're some kind of shield-draining technology. Redirect all available power to shield generators. The battle quickly evolved into a deadly chess match. The Scarthal vessel had superior maneuverability and exotic weapons that challenged human defensive systems. But the Resilience had advantages of its own, superior range on its primary weapons and tactical systems that could calculate firing solutions faster than the alien ship could change course. Marcus found himself thinking not just about tactical considerations, but about what this battle was supposed to demonstrate to the watching galaxy. The Watchers had said they wanted to see humanity's character under pressure. What did that mean in the context of ship-to-ship combat? Commander, Voss said urgently, the Bloodhawk is positioning for what looks like a ramming attack.
If they hit us at that velocity, both ships will be destroyed. Marcus studied the tactical plot and realized that Karthek was offering him a choice. The Scarthal commander was willing to sacrifice his own life and ship to destroy the Resilience, but only if Marcus allowed it to happen. There was still time for evasive maneuvers that would save both ships, but doing so would likely be seen as cowardice by the warrior culture watching the battle.
Sir, recommend immediate evasive action, urged Lieutenant Kim.
Marcus made a decision that went against every tactical manual in the human fleet.
Negative. Hold course and prepare for collision. But charge all weapons for point-blank engagement.
The bridge crew looked at him as if he had lost his mind, but they followed orders.
As the Bloodhawk bore down on them, Marcus realized he was betting everything on his understanding of Scarthal psychology and the nature of honorable combat.
At the last possible second, when collision was mere moments away, Marcus activated the ship's communications system.
Commander Karthek, if you ram us, both our ships will be destroyed and the battle will be a draw. Neither of our species will gain honor from mutual annihilation.
The Bloodhawk continued its approach, and Marcus thought he had miscalculated fatally. But then, just meters before impact, the Scarthal vessel rolled hard to port and fired its weapons at point-blank range instead of completing the ramming maneuver. The exchange of fire at such close range was devastating for both ships. The Resilience's shields collapsed entirely, and several hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. But the human ship's return fire had torn through the Bloodhawk's weakened defenses, causing massive damage to its engine systems. Both vessels drifted apart, severely damaged but still operational. Marcus realized that the battle had reached a critical juncture. Both commanders had demonstrated courage and skill, but neither ship was capable of continuing an extended engagement. Incoming communication from the Bloodhawk, Park announced. Karthek appeared on the screen again, but this time his armor was scorched and he had what appeared to be a significant injury to his left arm. Despite this, he seemed almost cheerful. Human commander, Karthek said with what Marcus was learning to recognize as approval, you fight with more honor than we expected. You did not flee when faced with certain destruction, yet you sought a path that would preserve both our lives. This shows wisdom to balance courage.
Marcus felt a glimmer of hope.
Commander, both our ships are severely damaged. I propose that we call this battle a draw, with honor satisfied on both sides. Negative, Karthek replied, but his tone was not hostile.
The combat is not yet complete.
However, I believe we have demonstrated enough to satisfy the observers. I suggest we complete this trial not with weapons, but with personal combat between commanders. The implications of this suggestion hit Marcus immediately. Karthek was proposing hand-to-hand combat between the two of them, with the winner representing the victor in the overall engagement. Sir, Voss whispered urgently, you don't have to agree to this. The space combat was already more than enough to satisfy any reasonable interpretation of the challenge. Marcus thought about the injured child in the mining station, the decision to help without considering personal cost, and realized that this moment was the culmination of everything the Watchers had been testing.
Commander Karthek, I accept your proposal. Where do you suggest we meet?
There is an asteroid near the combat zone, Karthek replied. It has sufficient atmosphere for both our species.
We will meet there, and the winner will claim victory for their people.
As both damaged ships limped toward the designated asteroid, Marcus prepared for what would likely be the most important personal combat in human history.
He wasn't a warrior by training, but he understood that this final confrontation wasn't really about physical prowess.
It was about demonstrating the qualities that would determine humanity's place in the galactic community. The asteroid had a thin but breathable atmosphere and low gravity. As Marcus sealed his environmental suit and prepared to disembark, he reflected on how a simple act of kindness toward a lost child had led to this moment where he would represent his entire species in personal combat with an alien warrior. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's future hung in the balance. The asteroid's surface was a desolate landscape of gray rock and ancient impact craters, illuminated by the cold light of distant stars. The thin atmosphere carried sound poorly, giving everything a muffled, dreamlike quality. Marcus Chen stood at the designated meeting point, watching as Commander Karthek approached from the opposite direction. The Scarthal commander moved with predatory grace despite the low gravity, his scaled skin reflecting the starlight like armor. Around them, the fleets of multiple species maintained their vigil, all of them waiting to see how this unprecedented trial would conclude. Marcus could feel the weight of their observation, but he tried to focus on the immediate situation. This wasn't just about winning a fight, it was about demonstrating something fundamental about human nature. Karthek stopped approximately 10 meters away and began removing his ceremonial armor. Underneath, he was even more impressive physically than Marcus had expected. The Scarthal commander stood over 2 meters tall, with a muscular frame that spoke of a lifetime of physical conditioning. His scaled skin bore numerous scars that Marcus recognized as marks of honor in warrior cultures.
Human commander, Karthek said, his voice carrying clearly despite the thin atmosphere, this final trial will determine not just the outcome of our current conflict, but how my people view your species for generations to come. Are you prepared?
Marcus began removing his own equipment, feeling somewhat ridiculous as he revealed a frame that was clearly not built for physical combat. He was of average height and build, kept in reasonable shape by military fitness requirements, but nowhere near the physical specimen that faced him.
I am prepared, Commander.
But before we begin, I want to say something that I think both our peoples need to hear.
Karthek tilted his head in what Marcus hoped was curiosity rather than impatience.
This entire test, from the moment I found what I thought was an injured child to this confrontation on an asteroid, has been about choices, Marcus continued. Not about our technology or our weapons or even our courage in battle, but about what we choose to do when we think no one is watching and when there's no immediate benefit to ourselves.
Explain, Karthek replied. When I helped that child, I didn't know it was a test.
I didn't know that aliens were watching or that the future of my species might depend on my actions.
I helped because it was the right thing to do.
When Admiral Morrison decided to trust my information about this situation, she risked her career and the lives of thousands of people because she believed in doing what was right rather than what was safe. Marcus gestured toward the ships hanging in space around them. And, when you agreed to single combat instead of a fleet action that would have killed thousands on both sides, you chose a path that honored the courage of individuals rather than just demonstrating the power of your fleet. Karthek was silent for several long moments, clearly thinking about Marcus's words.
You believe that how we conduct this combat matters more than who wins?
I believe that the Watchers and all the other species watching us right now are more interested in seeing whether we can find honor and wisdom even in conflict.
Whether we can be warriors without being monsters.
The Scarthal commander made a sound that Marcus was learning to interpret as approval.
You speak wisdom, human. Very well. Let us give them a demonstration of what honorable combat looks like. The fight that followed was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. Despite his clear physical advantages, Karthek didn't simply overwhelm Marcus with brute force.
Instead, he fought with a controlled precision that seemed designed to test Marcus's skill, determination, and character rather than simply defeat him. Marcus, for his part, found himself fighting not just with his body but with his mind. He used the asteroid's low gravity to his advantage, employing tactics that focused on mobility and leverage rather than trying to match Karthak's raw strength. More importantly, he fought with a clarity of purpose that came from understanding what this combat really represented. They circled each other on the asteroid's surface, exchanging attacks and counters in a deadly dance that was beautiful in its precision. Karthak's scaled skin provided natural armor, but Marcus's environmental suit gave him protection against the sharp edges of the commander's claws. Both warriors sustained injuries, but neither allowed pain to dictate their actions. As the fight continued, Marcus began to understand something crucial about Scarthol culture. They weren't just warriors, they were artists of combat. Every move Karthak made was calculated not just for effectiveness but for elegance. He was demonstrating his species' highest ideals through personal combat. This realization changed how Marcus approached the fight. Instead of simply trying to win, he began to fight in a way that honored both their traditions. He used techniques that showed respect for his opponent's skill while demonstrating human ingenuity and adaptability. The turning point came when Karthak executed a complex grappling maneuver that should have ended the fight immediately. Marcus found himself pinned with the Scarthol commander's claws at his throat, apparently defeated. But, instead of conceding, Marcus did something that surprised both of them. He laughed. "Commander," Marcus said, breathing heavily but grinning, "if you wanted to kill me, you would have done it already. This isn't about defeating me, it's about seeing whether I'll keep fighting even when I'm clearly outmatched." Karthak loosened his grip slightly, his reptilian features showing what Marcus interpreted as surprise. "You are not afraid?" "Of course I'm afraid," Marcus replied. "But fear isn't the same as cowardice." The Watchers wanted to see what humanity does when faced with impossible odds. We keep fighting, not because we expect to win, but because some things are worth fighting for regardless of the outcome. The Scarthol commander released him entirely and stepped back. "You understand the nature of true honor," Karthak said with what sounded like genuine respect. "Victory without honor is meaningless, but honor without the willingness to sacrifice for it is empty." Marcus stood up slowly, wiping blood from a cut on his cheek. "So what happens now? Do we keep fighting until one of us can't continue?" "No," Karthak replied. "The test is complete. Both of our species have demonstrated qualities that the galaxy values: courage, honor, wisdom, and the willingness to find alternatives to total warfare." Suddenly, the space around them filled with new light as several Watcher vessels materialized nearby. The crystalline ships seemed to gather the starlight and amplify it, creating an almost ethereal glow that illuminated the asteroid's surface. The familiar mental voice of Keeper Zy spoke to both commanders simultaneously. "Commander Chen, Commander Karthak, you have both exceeded our expectations." This trial was never about determining a winner in combat. It was about discovering whether two species could find honor and wisdom even in conflict. Marcus and Karthak stood side by side, both breathing heavily from their exertions but facing the Watcher vessels with dignity. "Humanity," Zy continued, "you have demonstrated that your species possesses not just courage and ingenuity, but the wisdom to seek alternatives to unnecessary conflict. Your choice to offer single combat, your conduct during the battle, and your recognition that honor matters more than victory have all been noted." The mental voice shifted focus. "Scarthol, your willingness to accept an unusual challenge, your conduct in battle, and your recognition of honor in your opponent show that your warrior culture has evolved beyond mere aggression into something worthy of galactic citizenship." More ships began arriving in the system, elegant vessels from the Crystalline Collective, sleek craft from species Marcus had never seen before, and massive constructs that seemed to bend space around them. Representatives from across the local galactic community had come to witness this moment. "Both of your species are hereby welcomed into the galactic community," announced a new voice that seemed to represent multiple species speaking in unison. "Humanity will be granted colonization rights in 17 uninhabited systems, with full diplomatic recognition. The Scarthol hegemony will be assigned as humanity's cultural liaison, helping to guide your integration into galactic society." Marcus felt a wave of relief and joy so intense that it was almost overwhelming. Humanity had not only passed the test but had gained an ally in the process. Karthak extended his clawed hand to Marcus in what appeared to be a gesture of friendship. "Human Commander, I believe our species will learn much from each other. Your people's creativity and our people's honor could create something remarkable." Marcus clasped the offered hand, marveling at how a moment of kindness toward what he thought was a lost child had led to this historic alliance. As the various ships began to depart and formal diplomatic protocols were established, Marcus reflected on the true lesson of the past few days. The galaxy wasn't just watching humanity's technology or military capability. They were observing human character, looking for signs that a young species could grow beyond its primitive impulses and become something worthy of joining the vast community of civilized worlds. The test had never been about combat or tactics or even courage, though all of those had played their part. It had been about demonstrating that humanity could make moral choices even under pressure, could find wisdom in conflict, and could recognize honor in their opponents even in the midst of battle. 6 months later, as Marcus stood in the newly constructed diplomatic station orbiting Earth, watching human and Scarthal engineers working together on humanity's first galactic-class starship, he often thought about that strange child in the mining station corridor. The simple decision to help someone in need had opened a door to wonders beyond imagination. Admiral Morrison, now promoted to lead humanity's first Galactic Relations Division, joined him at the observation deck. "Any regrets about that day on the mining station?" she asked. Marcus smiled as he watched human children playing with young Scarthal in the station's recreation area, learning each other's games and forming friendships that would shape the future of both species. "None at all, Admiral. Sometimes the most important tests are the ones we don't know we're taking." The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple recognition that kindness, courage, and honor were universal values worth preserving. The real test had been whether humanity could remain human while reaching for the stars. And they had passed with distinction.